start off the project, we need to put on new coilovers and replace anything that's worn out or torn or anything like that. So we're gonna start taking off the wheels, then dig into the suspension and ultimately the angle kit, which you kind of have to have for a drift car. To begin, we're diving straight into a box of a tool that I've wanted for a really long time, and that is the Quick Jack system. This Quick Jack system is a portable hydraulic lift that you can easily set up in your garage. It can lift your vehicle about 2.5 feet, and it just makes it so much easier to work on your suspension components, really anything under the car. Once we start taking things off, however, we uncovered a new surprise with the Drift Corvette, aka the gift that just keeps on giving. While we were taking apart the OEM suspension to get ready for coilovers, I did notice this. So this looks like we have some frame damage, but yeah, this was not disclosed to us when we purchased the vehicle for this project. So that kind of is a bummer. Hopefully with all the new parts that are going in there, we can adjust around this. This becomes an issue. I guess we'll deal with that a little bit later down the line. After we discussed what we found and discussing a few potential solutions for the damaged frame, we began unbolting all of the suspension components. They will need to be out of the way for us to install our new coilovers and the WiseFab angle kit. Removing these components is pretty simple, and having the Quick Jack and power tools made it so much easier. Now that we've taken all of the OEM suspension out and gotten rid of that super old leaf spring, we now need to put new parts in it. They're gonna be Fortune Auto 510 coilovers, as well as the WiseFab knuckle kit. Also have to still take apart the rear end and do that at the same time. So all in all, this day is all about suspension and getting that angle kit taken care of. What we have right here are Fortune Auto 510 coilovers. These have actually been upgraded with Hypercoast springs, and our spring rates are 14K front and 10K rear. This is after I consulted with them, let them know what the purpose of the car was and what the mods were going to be inside the car. I'm super excited to throw these on because I actually already have experience with 510s and Hypercoast on my Mustang, and it rides really well, considering how stiff I have that car set up. There's a few steps we got to do before these go on the car. One of them is that we have to set the right preload, and that's going to make sure that these springs don't jingle around whenever we're actually putting them on the car. And then we're going to set up a rough ride height. I want to wait till the end to really dial in the ride heights, but I'm just going to kind of do a guesstimate for now, get these on the car, and then it's super easy to change later. We just move these collars, and with these collars, you can then go up or down, giving you more height, or lowering it. You can really dial in your feel, the height, everything, all with this. When we first got the car, we didn't know that there was an AC on here. So right now, because we have the front end so blown apart, it's made the compressor the most accessible it ever has in the past. So we want to go ahead and knock that out right now. And typically it can be a big job taking off the header and all that stuff. But luckily, because of the suspension that we already have out of the way, we may be able to get this done in a few extra hours. The front end is our main goal. I still have to order some parts because that's what happens on a project car. You start digging into things and then you realize you have to order a few extra parts. But first we need to drain all of the radiator coolant out of this. So that way we're not sitting in a big old mess, and we can start working on that in our next session that we have in the garage. It's now a new day, and the goal for today is just to dive into all of the loose ends that we have, which are the rear suspension pieces. We have the coilovers we need installed there. Also have a lower ball joint that needs to be replaced, so a little bit of maintenance at the same time as modification. And then we're also going to get as far as we can with the angle kit because we still don't want to put everything back together while we're waiting to get that AC compressor. So it's a little bit of cart before the horse on a few of these mods, but the biggest thing is that we're still working and moving forward, trying to build this entire car within the next few weeks. Here in the inside of the Corvette, we actually drilled a hole to be able to reach the adjusters here. Now, if you're doing this in your street car, it may not be something you want to do, but the fact that this is going to be a dedicated track car with street capabilities, we don't care. We just went ahead and cut a hole in this fiberglass. The thing you got to watch for is the steel here, because that is the frame rail on a C6 base, which is a steel frame. If you have a Z06, you have an aluminum frame. So you got to be extra careful there. We're working on the angle kit, and the one that we chose is the WiseFab angle kit, and we're just doing the knuckle. Now, of course, you can go beyond this. They have upper and lower control arms, and I did a bunch of research before picking out this kit. It is the cream of the crop. You do have to spend a pretty penny, but I went ahead and bit the bullet and got it done. The reason I did that is because a lot of times drifters think it's just about angle. And of course, angle is nice because you can save yourself and do more extreme angle when you're drifting, but there's a big thing called usable angle and adjustments alongside it. So just getting steering angle isn't enough. You have to be able to adjust your Ackerman, your caster, your camber, all of those. And so that is why I just went ahead and did WiseFab. They've got a lot of pedigree, a lot of FD drivers that are professionally driving use this kit. So I'm not quite at that level. We just did the knuckle, so you'll see I have stock upper and lowers, but it's really great that you can go ahead and change and upgrade later on and still keep the same knuckle that you already have. And then on top of all of that, we want to do the caliper painting because we have everything taken apart, and why would we want to bolt everything together to just unbolt it later? So just in the sake of efficiency, I have the yellow caliper paint, which is going to match and bring together with the colors of the livery. As we have all those parts out, just makes the most sense to do it together. I started by putting the new knuckle on the bench, where I transferred the hub from the OEM knuckle and installed it into that blue WiseFab kit. Be sure to torque this down properly, as the vibrations from driving could affect it over time. And then after that, we installed the WiseFab Uniball lower ball joint into the lower control arm. Typically, I just rent the ball joint tool from a local auto parts store, but for this project, I purchased one and it came in extremely handy. Hindsight is 2020, and we probably should have trimmed the lower control arm bucket before we installed the ball joint, but here we are using the Sawzall to modify the LCA. Pro tip, because of the aluminum getting stuck in the blade, use some WD-40 to clean out the blade as you're cutting. With this now modified, we can install the coilover. I started with the top nut and then did the bottom two bolts. You'll need to flip these just due to the design of the coilover and the clearance. You want to be sure that the top is fully seated. We gave it a couple taps with a hammer and a socket around the mount, and it did the trick. I can't recommend the WiseFab kit enough just based on the ease of installation. It's actually easier than the OEM setup. Everything bolted together really easily, can't complain there. We just installed the factory installed Ackerman setting that we got with WiseFab. There's ways to adjust it, but we'll handle that once we get to the track. You'll want to be sure you cycle from left to right a few times and make sure that you're not pulling on your brake lines. And you also want to make sure you do your best about centering the steering wheel when installing the new tie rods. Of course, you'll still want an alignment once everything is set and you have it all dialed in, which is something we'll save for a future episode. Now we have the angle kit and suspension all installed. One of the things you want to be careful of is if you are still rocking your stock brake lines, you will overextend them if you don't put the stopper on the right setting. Everything is now buttoned up on the front. Technically, we could throw on a wheel and be under its own weight, but this angle that you have with this kit is absolutely crazy because you got to think the wheel is actually going to be wider. It is a lot of steering angle and it's usable, and I don't have to worry too much if I do overextend, because there's no way I can. I'm hitting up against metal down there to stop it versus overextending the rack. Of course, you want to make sure you have those C4 inner tie rods. WiseFab does mention that. And then all of that comes together. But these C4 ones are slightly longer than the C6, and that's what we're able to do here. So it gives you more angle when you turn your steering wheel. One thing I will say about the calipers, it was trust the process. The first few coats, it looked like this is not going to work. It looks like you're going to be ruining your calipers. However, you just keep layering it on. And of course I went with yellow, so that's a lighter color. You're gonna have to add more layers than say a black or like a darker color, like a purple. But just keep layering it on and it gets better and better with time, and this is where we're at. This thing's supposed to be good to like 800 and something degrees, I think. So it should be totally fine for what we're gonna do, and it'll really bring together all of the colors that we have on the wet. Actually get to knock a few of these things out because I added a few of these since the last time in the intro that we made this. But we knocked out the thermostat. AC system just still needs to be charged, but that's good. Still just need to do that. Rear outer tie rods, we knocked that out. Front lower ball joints, we knocked that out. The C4 tie rod inners, we knocked that out. We also have calipers, yellow paint. That is all done as well. We'll be starting to really get some progress here. We just had to knock out that maintenance stuff, and then it really starts to get fun. Because we've been working on the car for the past couple of weeks here, the battery's died. Actually, we need to get a new battery in there because it's not even the right one. It's got a marine deep cycle, which isn't really made for the car. But luckily, Benpack sent out the Jackpack, and this is gonna go ahead and allow us to jumpstart this thing so we can start to circulate the coolant, which is really distilled water and water wetter. They have a ton of different products. So they also have a light we've been using. They also have the quick jacks that we've been using. They have the Cool Boss, which is running in the background, keeping us literally cool. So there's a ton of different things. You can have stuff even in your home garage, all through Binpack. So huge shout out to them. $214, $212. Yeah, it's bouncing $214 to $12. It's actually cooling it. Fans kicking in. Yep. Finally wrapping up on the suspension and the angle kit. Those are all taken care of. They honestly went in pretty smoothly. The only problem we had was ordering parts along the way because in my case, the car had blown out everything. So we ordered new suspension parts, replaced them while we were in there because it was just one of those scope creep moments where it's just a lot of while we're in there or while we're at it. So we did a lot of that, but this is knocking off two major check boxes on our big to-do list. The reason why we did this is because whenever you're drifting, sometimes you need additional angle or else you'll spin out. You'll actually loop is what they call it. Of course you could drift with the stock car. This just allows you to take it one step further. On top of that, we also did the suspension, which is done by Fortune Auto. They have 24-way adjustable dampening. We have Hypercoast springs on those. We did those because those antiquated leaf springs just needed to go. The shocks were definitely blown. It's an 07 with 120,000 miles. It needed to go. Adjustability of our ride height is gonna allow us to dial it in because we have the wide body and wheels and tires. And I am very picky about what that fitment looks like. So I'm really excited to dial that in as well. All in all, this stuff is all possible to be done in your own home garage. It definitely helps to have quick jacks. It definitely helps to have a Cool Boss, especially here in Sacramento where it's over 110 degrees. We had a huge heat wave and that's a perfect time to start on a race car build. We still got quite a bit to go on here, but we are marking off a couple of giant projects. Next thing we're gonna be focusing on is gonna be the PBM Hydro. We need the PBM Hydro, and we also need a short throw shifter thrown into this thing. My Corvette comes with a T56 because it's a 2007. On 2008 and above, you get a TR6060, which arguably is a better transmission. But either way, on a TR6060, you're gonna want a short throw shifter as well. So we have a T-Mod shifter coming in. We're gonna be putting in a PBM Hydro, running brake lines so that way we can lock up the rear wheels. That's gonna be really exciting. That's gonna really be a telltale sign with an angle kit that this is a purpose-built drift car. Be sure to subscribe to the Driving Line YouTube channel so you guys can stay tuned for all of the upcoming festivities, building this C6 from a beat salvage title C6 Corvette into a full Japanese drift-inspired C6 ready for the racetrack. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this video up right here, and as always, I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to please comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Thanks for watching. I'm Kristen Klein, Driving Line's Editor-in-Chief. Driving Line brings you weekly episodes and series, so hit subscribe. Don't miss the next video with more automotive content that fuels you. We'll see you out there.